really glad to be here again for another time, and I hope we'll have a very lively discussion. Anyone can jump in at any time and just contribute. And you can do as well on Slido, so don't forget the questions. And since you have already mentioned that apparently scraping is getting harder by the year, I would like to extend this question to you as well. What do you think? What were the developments in the anti-blocking in the past year? So maybe let's kick off. Ieva, what do you think?
Yeah, well, we definitely had a very fun year with a lot of fun challenges in unblocking. I guess the biggest shock of the last 12 months was that in January, Google started requiring JavaScript. So that really shook the whole unblocking community. Then there's, of course, AI that is in the mix of blocking methods more and more. So now you need to think how to tackle AI, probably with AI. But in general, I think unblocking now means deep tech. So to be able to unblock now, you really need to dig into TLS and variables that are exposed during TLS handshakes and like cipher suites and extensions and etc. You also need to be able to make sense of fingerprinting methods like JA3 and JA4, HTTP2 fingerprinting too, which is not just a set of headers. And yes, we do have open source libraries that help, like TLS Client and curl impersonate, but this year we actually reached that point when they alone were just not enough anymore. So, fun.
Interesting. What do the rest of you think?
Well, if Ieva was talking about the TLS fingerprints, I'm myself like a big web browser guy. Like browsers are my favorite software to use, and I think if you set it up correctly, it's the perfect software. So you wouldn't have issues like with Google. Of course, browsers are more expensive. So just to speak, what happened since the last OxyCon? From the browser side, so I think Playwright was playing a big role in that, and as many you've seen, Playwright and Puppeteer, people detected that they were leaking, so it caused to create software like patched versions of Playwright, patched versions of Puppeteer, then, you know, software like No Driver Downloader, which was kind of a small fork of Playwright, not exactly a fork, but kind of a different implementation of Playwright, which you would use only CDP protocols to communicate with the browser and control it. It became usable actually, so that's a big thing. Then I think something like, we could mention browser use maybe, which were like a software not for scraping. You can use it for scraping it as well, but more for controlling the browser. So they rewrote their Playwright part with also custom CDP commands. So you kind of can see where it's going already. And I think another big thing to mention is software like fingerprints for your browsers. So, you know, you spawn the same browser on one device. So you spawn 1,000 browsers on the same device. They all will have the same fingerprint. So how do you tackle that? So I think this is where we're going right now, that it's like a data game in the browser.
Yeah, so I think it's quite interesting with Tada's side that lots of open source projects that are trying to catch up with the anti-bot solutions, and I think the key is to be agile in terms of being able to run as many experiments as quick as possible to see what works or what not, or what's worth of invest time on it from the team, because the only constraint that we have is our team, so human resources pretty much. And yeah, and looks like we will end up all doing our own fork of Chromium. You spoke about browser use. They actually wrote all their CDP stack, but what they aren't saying is that they have a fork of Chromium on their cloud-based solution. So that's like their secret sauce. So yeah, I think that's the only key to be able to bypass this anti-bot solution is try to be on top of the open source ecosystem and community. Also, Discord helps a lot. So,
Hussein, what's your take?
I mean, I think like answering the question regarding like have we noticed an increase in the anti-bot engineering? The answer is yes. when you look at the numbers and then the projections, this industry is meant to reach, like to pass the billion by 2028. We've been through some numbers during the presentation, and then we've talked about the virtual circle, about the AI, helping the AI going around, and I think this is going to carry on. But in terms of are we facing an industry that is growing, that is going to attract more and more people, and engineers and clever people, working into this industry to try to block what we try to do? Definitely. So, and I mean, we've mentioned that several times. We've also noticed new emerging techniques when it comes to how we get blocked. Basically, we've got these new actors that actually scan the traffic in order to identify what type of proxy provider you use. So as soon as they snatch the information that you're working with Oxylab or whomever, basically then they block you straight away, which is it's Monocle basically who does that. And then we've never seen that in the past. Another emerging techniques that happens lately with some coverage, some retailers that we're trying to get, like in the US, the team came back saying this is military grade security level. We've never seen that in the past. So
also, like all the anti-bot solutions have become commodities nowadays, and I think that you in the past, like a couple of years ago, you could have your ways around, like, well, there's a private API hidden under the mobile app. They have already pushed their own SDKs, so you rather spend your time trying to reverse engineer those mobile app SDKs or the desktop website. So nowadays it's really complicated, especially to know what to invest your time, your team time.
Understood. So many of you already mentioned open source. Do you think it's a good strategy in approaching hard targets, at least this year, nowadays?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go ahead? Or everybody wants to?
You started once.
You started.
I'll go after.
I'll start being more assertive into who speaks.
So
okay.
One thing that really has changed the way we work is we have in-house built platform where we just plug in solutions such as proxy types, header ordering, TLS fingerprint stack, and that's per netlog domain. And we are also able to, in a quick way, plug in open source solutions, such as, let's say, Camufox or any other headless browser. So we are able to try it against real workload. And also we have a whole stack of observability. So if something fails, we even detect rollouts of these anti-bot systems. Like, okay, that add-on has just released whatever, we can notice that. And we actually give the team like act-enable alerts on top of that. So they know that, well, this way of scraping this specific anti-bot system is no longer working. And we also have like a system of fallbacks where if, of course, we always try the cheapest way, because also budget is a constraint apart from the amount of team that you have. So yeah, we have this fallback, and the last resort is always an unlocker API.
Understood.
Yeah, so I think Juan already did a great start to what I wanted to say. So open source, I think, is good for like 80–90% of the use cases. It's also can be difficult to find good open source repositories fast, and even more difficult to test them fast and evaluate if they are better or worse, where they are better. Developers would know which engines to use for specific use cases, but still wouldn't cover maybe all 100% use cases. You still need some more powerful engine, and one way to do that is to check for those open source repositories, have alerts, like Pierre did the presentation on that he has alerts for scanning all the different blogs. So you take all of the good parts from your open source scraper and you build into your own engine.
Anyone want to add?
I think you mentioned camouflage earlier on, and that's a good example. So we came across that and we had to use it. But one of the problematic that you face is that if you get blocked again, detected, I mean, you need to wait for Mr. Camouflage to make the update, basically, in order to move on.
Yeah.
And I think we will carry on using open source. It's definitely like a source of solution that we need to carry on using. And it's also about a mindset. I think it's very important that we carry on using open source tool as much as make things available on the open source community, because it has to go both ways.
Absolutely. Okay, one of the sort of tactics that was mentioned was the mobile APIs. Is that a valid strategy this year? Still common?
I think it's still, because I mean, I can speak as I work for a company where I'm running the crawling team, but I'm also about to run an anti-bot team. So yeah, I mean, the amount of money that you need to put in to stop, so to contract these anti-bot systems, it's by traffic. And in our case, for example, putting up for example, we are using Datadome. So setting up the SDK for mobile, it's actually a lot of money. So we just realized that there are, smart people hacking their way using the private API. So yeah, we are looking into that. And this situation that's happening to us happens to lots of different companies. So yeah, I think it's still a valid way.
Yeah, I would also say it's a pretty valid way, because you can find the SDKs usually. They're of course encrypted, you need to decrypt. But if you're able to decrypt or listen to the traffic via your phone from those SDKs, then it's certainly a valid strategy. It would be the same like, decrypting a Datadome, JavaScript, obfuscation or something like that. So it's just the same way for the mobile SDKs.
Also, we found that you sometimes can exchange session or cookies from one way to the other, from desktop to mobile and vice versa.
Yeah, it makes sense. They should use the same backend eventually, so yeah.
Makes sense. And what do you think sort of in general? So there are always sort of two polar opposites. So one is just sort of making ultimate stealth and not getting taught and having sort of universal thing for all the targets, or just working on one target and finding specific weakness or some specific, a bug there. What has been more fruitful sort of lately? Maybe you have any?
Well, from my experience, every target is very different. And while one solution could work on many targets, but more complicated cases normally require specific attention per target. So I don't think there's one solution that works for all the targets, really. So if it works for a few, you cannot rely on it for it to work on others. Basically.
Understood.
I agree. I think the one solution fits for all doesn't exist. But at the same time, I think you need to find a way on how do you mutualize basically your solution, and how do you industrialize them in a way that those models, once they are updated, can be applied in several situations, especially when you find the common issues and it's common across like several problems. You need to make sure that you're not redoing the same work basically each time. And I think the model approach should help basically to address that on the long run. But still, you come back to the same problematic again, is that each time there is an update, each time there is a change, you need to make sure that you have the flexibility that allows you to make one update that fits, and then you can distribute across all the retailers or whatever source that you're scraping that will face the same issue.
Makes sense. Hussein, you mentioned also. I'm also getting into this territory. Okay. Okay. So you also mentioned IP reputation scoring, and that sort of being on the rise. So a couple sites popped up. There were services always like that, but am I correctly understanding that you see a sort of raising sort of significance of them, of them being more common and used?
I think, more common, most used. Yes, there is definitely an increase in the usage of the anti-bot, and I think I think it goes together. So the industry, we knew basically that the online data industry will grow, and we had the numbers for years, and we knew that everything that is happening online will become even more strategic than it is today, even more now with the AI. And obviously, for me, it's just a matter. I mean, it's just a matter of time until people start to realize that everyone should eventually protect their data, as Walmart does, or as Google does. It's just a matter of time until they understand how strategic the data they have could be used, or could be reused, or could be sold. Or maybe not. I don't know, but that's the way I see it for now.
Makes sense. Okay, so we a bit started touching on the territory of reverse engineering, so sort of checking against specific sites, searching for sort of strategies that could work there. What skills or let's say what things to look for when reverse engineering? What sort of areas are important in terms of checking there? Does anyone have anything to say about that?
So for reverse engineering, I would say you need like pretty good math skills usually. You need also, like, if you don't have that, like, it's fine. You can also find a lot of de-obfuscation techniques online on GitHub. I know there have been a lot for Datadome, and they've been changing things to avoid that. But that's not gonna be for all antibots, so that's tricky. So, but basically, yeah, like Discord helps to get you on track. But it's basically just sitting down and just grinding the obfuscated code and try to write maybe some de-obfuscator, some automated stuff. But that's also very, very complex.
I think you just really like puzzles and problem solving and have some patience, you know.
Very complex puzzles.
I think it's all about having this hacker mindset. Like, well, you know, if you have a mobile app, that person needs to think how this works underneath, right? What requests or response are powering this, and you know, for me, like, a big win is when a coworker asks me, okay, I'm doing this man in the middle on the mobile app, but I can't see the requests passing by. Okay, I can explain you what's an SSL certificate pinning and how to bypass that, right? But they really need to have that proactivity and to be curious. Otherwise, that won't happen.
Totally agree on the math skills. There is a lot of just in order to be able to crack some of the sorry, let me rephrase that. In order to be able to crack the understanding on how basically we were getting blocked and at what level, we had basically like the people who've managed to get that, you know, had to use like advanced mathematics in order to unlock that. So totally agree with you on that. Same for the mindset, although, I mean, having said that, I can't imagine someone doing reverse engineering if you like I don't know, something else. If you like reverse engineering, obviously you have like this hacker mindset. It's very important. And to come back to the mindset, and on the top of it, I think there is another element that is key: is resilience. If you're not resilient, if you don't like puzzles, mathematics, and you don't have the hacker mindset, and you need to be able to be, you know, like to perdure over time. Otherwise, it's not going to work, because you might crack something the first time, and we know this happens night and days, weekends, and then when the hackers start, you know, to go down the rabbit hole, you can't stop them, basically. Even if you tell them, I asked you not to work until 3 a.m. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't stop. I had to understand why we were blocked and so on and so forth, although I do not recommend to do that. But once they go down the alleyway, they can do it once, twice, but then it becomes like a game, a long term. It's a marathon, basically. It's going to take like a bit more of time. That's why Fred, for example, keep reminding our engineers very often, guys, this is not like this is not like a speed run. This is a marathon. This is going to take time. So you better preserve your energy, your understanding, and be perseverant. So I think that's very important.
I mean, I can only fully agree. I mean, we do have also in Oxylabs people who've been working on some targets for many months with fluctuating results on daily basis, you know. So yeah, it's a very much also a mind game in so much as this you need to celebrate wins and sort of
celebrate the wins, and as you said, it's a mind game. And there is one thing, for example, that I think is very important when you do reverse engineering, complex reverse engineering, and now we can call it R&D. So that's what we do. We do research and development in order to understand how things have been engineered to go around them to carry on being able to get the data. And yeah, I think it's very crucial that you do not let people work in isolation. We've talked about like the mindset, we talked about how the team needs to stay and work together. But that's something that happens, is that you have one person, you allocate the work, they start to work on it, and then they go down. And then you realize, like after 2 months, that they've been working on it, and then they can't crack the code. And then they start to build on the morale. And then obviously they take that as a failure, and then they can't move on to the next step. Where actually, when it's the two of them, it's, one can back the other. So I think it's very important to avoid isolation as well.
Absolutely. So you touched a bit on R&D. I don't know, maybe any pointers, let's say, how it is run in your company? How do you approach sort of building out capabilities for scraping?
Well, pretty much everything. Yeah. So no news on that. So we have that platform, and that I told already, and for us it's having the right mindset people. And also, the main problem is that you have to put a stop at some point on how much time they can employ or use on cracking things, because otherwise they will burn out of their job. So yeah, at some point we just kind of scale that to the business side and say, okay, we need to rely on a provider to get rid of this problem, at least in the short or mid-term, because we otherwise operations can be running.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you also worked a lot on these front lines. What's your take?
Well, as you say, you need to put a stop there at some point, when to stop investigating or when to seek for help. But in my experience, if I cannot crack it, I just cannot stop. so it is very difficult.
You just contradicted yourself. I don't know if you realize.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I don't crack it, then I don't sleep for a week. So.
But it is a common pattern among people who are good at it. So.
Yeah, this is great. I'd also like to add about it, like Fred from your company just gave an example how you guys train the engineers, scraping engineers who come in, and you have like this probation period where you kind of share ideas.
Academy.
Yeah, and I know at Oxylabs when I worked, we really have a good thing from our scraping managers who have scraping guild, where we also can come in every month or 2 weeks and just share what we've accomplished and just keeping the knowledge on the same level. So I think that really helps if you're doing R&D and then can share with other people.
Absolutely, it's a team sport. It's not sort of an individual endeavor. Yeah. The most used term in this conference was obviously AI, LLM, and something. If it would be a drinking game, we would be already, there. But I managed to sort of stop it for a while, but now sort of getting back to it. Do you see it like more in your operations or the way you approach scraping, like this year? Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that AI can help at the moment is IP reputation, but the rest of it, I mean. It helps the team to have time for other things, because if you have self-healing parsers, you have spiders that are already made by, let's say, Cloud Code. For example, we have internally a software agent in Cloud Code with pretty much with a pydantic model do the spiders. So that leave more room to the team to do research and development and try to tackle more hard problems. So yeah, I think it enhances the team productivity.
Yes. How about captcha solving? I mean, that was mentioned in one presentation as well. Is that happening?
Yeah, for captcha solving, this is an amazing use case. Like I heard that AI cannot solve captchas yet, so yeah, they fully cannot. But we've seen, like when I worked at Oxylabs, we've been building some CAPTCHA solvers. And what you can do with those actually is you can label the data from the CAPTCHAs with AI. So, you know, if you have like select a fruit, select a banana, whatever, so AI will do the great job at labeling the data. And then with this labeled data, you can build custom machine learning models for that. So for that, it's amazing. If you need to solve a CAPTCHA fully with AI, it probably will fail 4 out of 5 times, and you know, it will select a banana instead of an apple or something. But if you label the data, then it's quite good.
Anyone else? Makes sense. Okay. In general, during last panel, we also heard that the landscape or the industry itself is shifting as well. These new paper crawl models, the new standards of robots.txt getting introduced. What do you think where the industry is headed? Like, I mean, will we have a more closed-off internet, or any takes?
I don't think any of us has a crystal ball, and that's what we said last year. It would be very difficult to imagine. And then, if I recall, we said we can envisage that things are going to be different, and then trying to be positive, we're not going to say more complex. But we were absolutely right, you know, about what we thought would happen. Yeah. And then one of the main point I think is happening at the moment is like a deep shift in the paradigm, and it's not just in the scraping or Timbot industry. This is across the board. Basically, we're living in an age where things are moving deeply at a very fast rate at every level. So, from my perspective, following the realization of where we are at this moment in time, what is important is that how do we join forces, basically not to double the work, not to make things redundant, and how do we create an alliance or whatever in order to start to have another conversation. This could include like having, discussion with PMX to tell them, speak with your clients, who could be actually my client as well, who look for the same data, but we're getting blocked, and then you're working to block us. We're not the bad boys. We don't do scalping. We don't do we're not trying to harm basically the website. So how do we move towards, like an industry where we work together? And I know I might be extremely naive in saying that. And there is a lot of financial concern because everyone wants to protect their cake. And I understand that. But how do we work together in order to have different conversation with the retailers, with the anti-bot, companies and so on and so forth, just to explain, as you said earlier on, are we going through a closed internet, and then are we going to forget about like everything open source or whatever? I don't think so. I don't think this will happen. People will hack. They will hack it again. But I think there is a shift in paradigm, and it's time now, and it has to happen now. So we need to sit down and talk with people who are in the same industry to see how do we address that, and how do we voice the fact that we need to make our life easier, because otherwise it's gonna, it's an ever-ending game.
Anyways, I think it's a shift from an internet which is based on advertising revenue. Like what happens if any business, any retailer, e-commerce, half of their traffic is not human, but it's agents. So I think we are not yet ready for that. The obvious thing will be, okay, we just move advertising from the retailer to OpenAI or Anthropic or to LLMs. But I'm not sure about that. So I think Cloudflare is really smart into making these RFCs standards with OpenAI, like to trust, okay, you are an agent, but I don't know, they're doing a gateway of the whole internet, and they can play nice or not. So I'm not sure about the outcome. We'll see.
Yeah, this is interesting thing what's happening with the paper crawl, but we've seen from peers question answering, like the math doesn't make sense there. And there are a few others who are trying to solve it like that. So for example, OpenAI, I think it was mentioned as well, has this signature thing where you send the signature to OpenAI and they will be able to scrape your website. There's another thing I just found. It's called RLS Collective. So it's basically a non-profit organization which implement this new robots.txt format, and like OpenAI and other agent scrapers should respect that and like pay you money. So it's basically like pay per crawl, but like non-profit. So people are trying to solve this, but I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, the people behind that signature of OpenAI, they're Cloudflare, actually. So
Yeah, it's like 3 proposals going there.
they're everywhere.
Anything to add? Anything to add?
No, I actually just found out about it now, so
So it's good, like actual sharing of knowledge is happening.
that's something new, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add, like just personally, yes, again, I learned the secret how to make it work. Hacker mentality, yes. Yeah, so, I mean, the incentive structure is changing. That seems to be at the corner of it. So, I mean, it's pretty clear that people who make content, I mean, want to get compensated. And before, for many years, it was the model where search engines drive the traffic and you sort of have the whole wheel spinning. And now, yeah, it switches due to how content can be produced so cheaply and etc. And I guess like many of the use cases that include more sort of factual information just get caught in the crossfire because it's not about that. And in those situations, I'm old enough to remember that robots.txt, the file, was actually more used to help index more of Google than to restrict it, because you always thought of that you have limited attention of how many pages Google will crawl you, and you have, let's say, these links like calendar where crawlers can get stuck and you know, you will miss out on some index pages on your site. So you would restrict those, and for the rest you say, yeah, just go and crawl, and give me all the views that you can. So, I mean, at least me, personally, I'm slightly optimistic. I think the incentives will sort of reshuffle, maybe not for all cases, but we'll see. And so far as working together, I guess like this conference is a nice start. Cool. Okay, so I think sort of before we go into Q&A session, let's do a classical one and just say, what are you looking for or are afraid of for the next year to come? What are the things?
I think it's all about this situation with AI, Cloudflare, and the gateway that they are putting on internet. It's like a ubiquitous company. So at least, I mean, it's not hard to bypass Cloudflare, but what will be of us if at some point it's like the hardest anti-bot system available and like 70% of the internet is not reachable by us, right? So I don't know. So it's that AI is shifting the power to just some hands, and they could move things one way or the other.
Well, I can mention one thing that scares me for this upcoming year, and one thing that I'm actually looking forward to. So what scares me is these new fingerprinting methods, like one of them is called JA4L, which basically measures the distance between a client and a server by calculating the latency between the first few packets in the connection. So why is that scary is because, well, you can copy, you know, headers and mimic TLS handshakes, but you can't really mimic or spoof speed of light. So that would basically mean that. And what I'm looking forward to is that I think that HTTP 3 is actually coming soon. There are some signs. So the curl CFFI, for example, it already supports it, but only for direct connection without proxy. So the missing piece is proxy to HTTP3, and there are signs in open source. So
Nice.
looking forward to it.
Losing my hair? No, it's too late. It's already too late for that. Two things. One is the ratio where we were. So we used to basically, you know, find a fix in 2 weeks and then be at peace for like 2 to 4 months. And now actually we take 4 months and then we get detected in less than 2 weeks if it's not 2 days. So that's this ratio is worrying because it means that for the people who work in this industry and try to find a solution, this is more tiring, and it's relentless, and then mind-binding, and it consumes a lot of bandwidth, I think. So that's the first thing. The second one is basically PMX deciding to do, who decides to do half price on Prime Day, and sending that to all the retailers, basically. That's the two things that worries me.
Makes sense. So scary things.
I would agree with the first part from Hossein very much. So my biggest fear is that, you know, we'd need a lot of real devices to scrape. So that's the biggest fear, because that's like the ultimate fingerprint, the real device. So if you need a lot of farms, that's super expensive. That can be very difficult to also implement and change the whole infrastructure. But overall, I think it looks good for the scraping world, like the projection, you know, you mentioned earlier. So I think it's okay there. We just maybe have a colder season with some of the websites.
Nice. Thank you all. I mean, me myself, I think a very interesting dynamic. Don't know. I'm both scared and not scared and interested. It's interesting how the AI funding in bubble will go, because now I think a lot of this backlash against scraping goes because they think it's such a big change and they have so much money. You know, maybe if there is less money, maybe everyone will get more reasonable. But we'll see.
But we do have a lot of money, so.
Well, yeah. So, but that wraps it up. I think quite a bit of fears, but yeah, we're all together and we're working on solutions. So hopefully next one will be a brighter one. Let's head into Q&A. So the first question will be, do AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude use advanced techniques to bypass anti-bot systems, or are they still blocked by Cloudflare? I can tell from my own experience, at least when I use most of these tools, they do get blocked with search mode quite a bit. We have their own agents. They actually declare themselves in user agent, and yeah, I guess a lot of the masters still do block them.
Yeah, we actually have to on our site, on the our website, we actually have to track those chatbots and allow them, because that's what CEO wants to that traffic to pass. So we were noticing that we were blocking part of them. So yeah, I think the Cloudflare RFC standard helps that, because Anthropic just declares a user agent. Okay, so that's not something ideal. Also, Cloudflare told me that they already know the IP ranges of Anthropic, so they are always on top of everything. So yeah, I don't know.
Excellent. Okay. Do you think that a high-quality proxy with a good fingerprint can straight away bypass antibots without solving the antibots challenges, which are score-based?
Yeah, I mean, it can. Like, if you have good enough quality of a proxy and good enough of a browser, like, why wouldn't it let you through? It's like a real user. You would look like a real user to it.
Yes. For a given website, how would you decide if you need to crawl it in static or dynamically, or with a browser, which can consume a lot of resources comparatively?
Well, if the data is already there, that's it.
You try and then you see. Okay. Are websites showing more fake data in order to deal with scrapers?
That's the A labyrinth thing from Cloudflare, and I also have been told that there are lots of Chinese e-commerce sites that are masters on serving fake data. So I don't know. Luckily, in the real estate sector, that doesn't happen yet. But yeah, that's something that really scares me, because who is gonna tell you either your data quality pipeline or the final client? Hopefully, it's the first one.
Asia, definitely, it's a given, and they've been doing it for a while. When we started basically to explore the Asian market, that's the first thing that we realized, is that they do send you fake data. So then you need to find the real data. But one thing emerged lately, is that we started to notice retailers on the US market, actually. I mean, we've noticed that the data was fake, but we don't know if it was a mistake or if it was done in purpose, or were they testing the Asian approach, because it did happen for a specific period of time and then it stopped.
Yeah, anyway, as a human, I always have different prices on AliExpress, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Hardest antibot to bypass is Datadome. Agree or deny?
No.
Okay, so no advertisement here. Yes. In your experience, what percentage of websites really use advanced techniques like browser fingerprinting or mouse movement analysis in practice? It's not a lot, but those are like usually important. Like if you have a reason to do
It's
it.
big players, some of them. But
Okay, to Tadas specifically. You are doing content analysis using LLMs. How expensive is that at scale, and what kind of cost optimization tactics do you use?
Yeah, so for top yappers, they process a lot of the creators, like influencers, with large language models. And yeah, it can get expensive, but the trick is about finding the cheapest model which can do basic stuff for you. So I used to use Gemini 8B, 8 billion model, which is like 15 cents per million tokens. They discontinued this, so now I'm switching to Llama models. So they're pretty cheap, and that's basically how you can save a lot of costs.
Nice. Okay. People say scraping blocking is a cat and mouse game. Will it always be like that, or will one side win in the end?
I think it will always be like that, unfortunately.
Nice. Okay. What are your techniques for telling customers that you can't scrape their target at the moment? That's truly advanced scraping techniques. And they need to wait for you to come with a new solution.
So first of all, you invite them to a pretty, like super posh restaurant. Start with that. You make sure you order the best wine available. Then you look them in the eyes and you tell them, it's going to be fine, Not now, but it's going to be fine.
I think one important thing when looking for a provider is customer support, right? So because you always need to have clear expectations on, okay, they're working on the problem, and this is like the expected deadline. So at least you can tell that, in my case, to the business side. Otherwise, it's like, you never know.
Yeah, and on a more serious note, I think the clients are not oblivion to the issues and the problematic that we have. I think it's good to put that in perspective and be transparent. That's very important. And something that I've noticed is that you would expect non-tech people not to be interested, but actually, or not understand, but actually the more information you give them, without like getting too technical or whatever, and the better it is, because they understand. And especially when you tell them, this is the level of complexity, this is where we were, this is what happened, so we get blocked, and we have this number of resources working actively to find a solution. But we come back to the ratio that we were referring to earlier on. When it's 2 weeks, it's fine. When it's 2 months, then that's another conversation.
Yeah. But I mean, the transparency is the only way, indeed.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. It's always better to be transparent with your client and then tell them from day one, and that's exactly what we do. And then we explain what are the issues, where we get blocked, what we're putting in place in order to address that. And that's the only way, as you said.
Okay, when scraping websites to fetch HTML without getting blocked, does it make any difference whether I use Linux or Windows?
Sorry, Linux or Linux, you said?
Linux or Windows,
You
sorry.
said Linux or Linux, you said?
That's fine. Clear preference.
Yeah, it can make sense. There are fewer Linux users, maybe like 2-3% of your traffic is going to be Linux, so it's obvious, I guess.
Cool. Can AI deal with more human-geared captchas, like the ones where you have to rotate an object in the correct direction?
What was the beginning?
So you have more human-geared captchas, where you need to rotate an image to the correct direction. Can AI work with that? Is it?
Yeah, like if just simple large language models, I think they could, because you would send the image and you would ask if it's correctly aligned, and it would probably give you true or false if you prompt it correctly. So I think it could, but probably too expensive to do that.
Okay. I think it's better to use patched browsers to bypass CAPTCHAs. It saves time, but it consumes resources. How do you handle multiple browsers at the same time?
That's one tough question. I mean, it's important to invest time of your team on knowing how to persist everything from a headless browser related, so you can handle this session kind of browsing, and it's the only way.
I would say outsource when you can. If you don't have the capacity, the money, the time, and the people to do it. So meaning, this is becoming, I think, like a business in itself. So at a certain point, realizing like the time it takes, and we were talking about that, it's not scalable because it's too like like a human greedy, resource greedy. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at the mirror and think about why did I end up running a browser farm?
Okay, so probably the last one for the evening. Do you see a shift using internal web APIs instead of scraping HTML? So using APIs on a website instead of just scraping all HTML, that's the end result. One of the techniques, but
it could be a good alternative if scraping an HTML is very expensive and it requires JavaScript rendering. So it can be a good alternative.
You already get the data parsed, so.
That's a good question. I don't know, but we get both, and usually we go in the API when it's available. But is there a shift? Is there more API? I don't know. I don't have the numbers.
Okay, so I think like we answered quite a bit. That was a truly consultation session. So we'll leave the rest for the Discord. Thank you very much as always. It was really nice, and yeah, hopefully like we definitely have jobs for next year. That seems clear, and hopefully next year will be more good news, and I don't know, not maybe not maybe easier to stream, but at least the same. Cheers, everyone.